What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Forward Progress. It's week 7, Best Bets edition. Myself, Rob Pizzola, Suma, Hitman, young Judah. It feels so weird to start the show this way, but we have to do a recap. And the only guy winning on this show right now is the Hitman. I don't know if you believe in karma. I don't think I did up until this year, but we roasted the guy for all of last season, and now we're all stuck in the gutter. He's the only positive. Wins with his best bet on Atlanta last week. It's honestly, it might just be the year of the Hitman. Prop service doing well for all the people who've been subscribing on the side. Incredible turnaround for Hitman. And Suma, you're having the Hitman year.
Well,
going for 7 today.
Well, if it makes any sense, last year, personal sides and totals, I had one of my best years ever, despite going 2-18 on this show. And this year, I think it's the worst start I've ever had. And I have a winning record on the show. So I don't know. I think I got to just make a deal with the devil to try to get both.
Well, H-Train says it's all long-term. If I lose again this week, we're going to have to pivot towards having a long-term leaderboard, which includes last year's records as well. Just a safe face. We're going to repeat what we did last week. So for those of you who didn't tune into week 6, I don't know why you wouldn't. Should tune in every single week. But we had a little bit of a new structure where we're trying to cover as many games as possible. I believe we're covering every single game on this week's show except for the Thursday nighter. So we're going to have lots of opinions here. We might agree. We might disagree on a bunch of that stuff. But we're going to get into it. And we're going to start right away with the London game. Jacksonville, New England. Judah, I'm going to throw it over to you here first. Looking at the betting market in this game, most books at 5.5. We got a market-making book at 6 right now. Jacksonville, pretty big favorite. Total in the game is 42.5. Judah, you're known for being the guy that likes to attack some alt markets in these games, and this is one of the games that you're looking at.
Yeah, looking at New England, the money line, maybe some -2.5, even if you're feeling bold, a -5.5, maybe some SGPs telling further stories. But I think when you're looking for one of these tail angles, you want to basically be saying, what is something that the market might be missing? And I think there's a legitimate possibility that Drake May is a pretty substantial upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. Something I track is what I call disruption. I talk about this all the time of either perfect coverage or pressure that disrupts the play from ever developing. And a great proof of this is, or I should say, a great proof of that it is quarterback dependent and is mostly a function of the quarterback is Drake May and Jacoby Brissett. They're playing in pretty much similar situations. Jacoby Brissett was at about 50% as a bit of context, the base rate of success on these plays. When you are disrupted, it is -0.6 expected points added. When you are not disrupted, it is about 0.6 expected points added, so a 1.2 points of a delta. And Jacoby Brissett was hanging out at around 50% basically every week. And Drake May was 34% against the Texans. And I don't think that's a function of the defense. I think there's a legitimate possibility you're going to see a lot more of these plays in the scheme. Drake May is a lot better of a processor and could be a lot better of a quarterback in a relatively easy matchup against the Jaguars defense that's been struggling all year. If May can kind of put together a great game here, this game I think is mispriced. And we can certainly see New England come out with a strong start in London.
All right, London game, early morning. Judah advocating for some of the alts on New England in that game. We'll get to the early slate, I guess the second early slate. Seattle, Atlanta. Little bit of market movement in this one. Basically, Atlanta's been bet out all the way to a 3-point favorite across the board right now. If you're still looking for Atlanta, -3, -102 at FanDuel is the best price that I see in market, left to right across the screen. Total in the game also taking substantial action towards the over. This one's been bet up to 51.5 right now across the screen as well. We're going to start with you here, Suma. Seattle, Atlanta, you have an opinion on the side.
Yes, I think that this might be the high point in market for the Atlanta Falcons after crushing the Carolina Panthers, who have no one left on defense. And I simply disagree on the surface that there is such a major difference between these two teams. I think that Seattle had has had some issues. They couldn't move the ball on early downs. Their offensive line is bad in pass protection. Their defense was rattled with injuries. They might get a few bodies back this week. But overall, their big problem was their offensive line. And this week, they play against the Falcons, who basically have close to a zero pass rush. So if they cannot move the ball against this Falcons defense, I don't know who they can successfully move the ball against in the future. I'm much closer between these two teams. So I think that I would not be surprised if we see a decent offensive output from the Seahawks and going with a +3.
Yeah, I agree with Suma on this game. I don't think that this is the quote unquote right price on the game. I see value now that it's been bet out to the 3. Obviously, you have to pay some juice at the -120. The big thing for me here is how Seattle has moved up and down in market over the course of the year. I think Suma brings up some great points about Atlanta's pass rush and it basically being non-existent. But for Seattle, they're coming off a run of games, not only against quality competition in Detroit, the Giants, and San Fran, but having to play those 3 games in 11 days. Drew Dinsink coined the term, the Widowmaker spot. They had that at home against the New York Giants as well. So I think that there's a pretty substantial chance that Seattle is somewhere in between where they were at the beginning of the year versus where they are considered in market right now. Cleve TA tweeted out the stats earlier today of Geno in a controlled dome environment versus out on the road. 12 career road games in games with the roof. And his EPA numbers are through the roof in those games when conditions aren't a factor as well. So I can't get to a full 3 in this game. I'm somewhere in the 1.5 to 2 range on this one. I like Seattle as well. I'm with Suma on this one. We'll hear from Hitman a little bit later on in the show on this. But Judah, you wanted to make a counterpoint here on Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that injuries matter a ton here. Byron Murphy's going to be coming back for Seattle, but I think they're going to be down Tariq Woolen. They're probably going to be down Trey Brown. There's just a ton of weak links now in the Seattle secondary. I also think they're going to be able to run the ball on the Seattle front. I'm not exactly sure what Seattle can do to stop Atlanta, and I think there's kind of some residual market pricing a little bit from Seattle's hot start. And I don't think that really applies given the injuries. And I would just say on the flip side very quickly, Seattle is a team that does not generate explosive plays a lot. They need to rely on first down after first down. Atlanta's done a great job limiting explosive plays. So I think that style of offense is just pretty fragile because you need to convert on so many of these third downs, and eventually you're going to fail one of them, whether you get called for a penalty, a drop, whatever it might be. I think that's a lot less of a sustainable method of success. And makes the spot particularly fragile when considering how Seattle's defensive outlook appears given the injuries.
All right, so we're split on that game, Seattle and Atlanta. We'll move it along here. We got the Minnesota Vikings hosting the Detroit Lions off of a bye week, considered arguably one of the games of the week in what is a very good schedule in terms of competitive games this week. Minnesota's taken action in the early going here. Early numbers been moved out to 2.5. Haven't seen any 3s pop up across the board right now. Total at FanDuel 49.5. Across the screen, we see some 50s out there as well. -2.5, -105 FanDuel looks to be the best price in market right now. I know some people say there are 2s out there, but they're juiced a little bit more than they should be. So we'll start with you, Hitman, going on this game. Minnesota, Detroit, you have a lean on the side.
Yeah, just a slight lean to Minnesota. I just feel like you can't overstate how big of a loss Hutchinson is to the Lions. It's a defense that was already missing Marcus Davenport from a few weeks ago. Derek Barnes is out for the season in the linebacking core. And Hutchinson was first in pass rush win rate through 6 weeks. Like, this is a Lions defense that plays extremely aggressively. I think from a prop perspective, Sam Darnold props could possibly be in play on overs as Detroit faces a league high 40 pass attempts per game. They're an obvious pass funnel defense, and Darnold has not had a lot of volume year to date, which has hurt some of his counting stats just because Minnesota has been blowing so many teams out. On the other side of the ball, I think that Minnesota's run defense is at least suited to contain this Detroit run game. Last year, they faced them twice. They held Gibbs and Montgomery both to under 4 yards per carry. This year, they're third in EPA per play and success rate in their run defense. And I know Jared Goff has put up some big numbers in the last few weeks, but if you get him into a predictable passing situation and take away the run, or at least just don't get run over like some of these teams have been in recent weeks, he struggled in that spot this year. He's only ahead of Bo Nix, Gardner Minshew, Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, and Bryce Young in EPA per play on obvious dropback situations. This year, we know that he's still sensitive to pressure. It's a blitz-heavy, pressure-heavy defense that the Vikings have. And, I feel like some people are still attached to some priors with Minnesota. But I have zero doubt that Minnesota is for real. There's some hesitancy on it, I guess, because it's Sam Darnold. But this is a team that is number one in point differential this year. It's been against arguably the league's toughest schedule. They won by margin, at least against San Francisco. They won by margin against Houston. They were up huge at halftime against Green Bay. So I just have a slight lean towards Minnesota at -2.5.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that, and we'll get to Suma in a second here. I like Minnesota in this game as well. I think fair is 3 personally in this game, and it's nothing against Detroit. We talked about Detroit-Dallas last week on this program, and I love the Lions in that spot against the Cowboys. So it's nothing about like being anti-Lions, but Detroit's schedule this year, when you look at the opposing defenses that they've played the Rams in week 1. They played Bucks week 2 with multiple injuries on defense. They played the Cardinals week 3. They played Seahawks week 4, multiple injuries on defense. Cowboys week 6, multiple injuries on defense. This is an enormous step up in class against the Brian Flores defense. I'm not saying it's going to be a complete shutdown by any stretch of the imagination. I still like Detroit's offense quite a bit, but I do think that they're coming off an extremely impressive game where they matched up really well against that defense. I don't think you see that same output. On the other side of things, I agree with Hitman. Like the Hutchinson loss is enormous. Like they just do not have another viable pass rusher against an offensive line that has a very good tackle unit on both sides of the ball. You look at Hutchinson this year, he had a 25% pressure rate. I mean, look at the next top 5 pass rushers on the Lions, and you're seeing them all around 10% or lower. I think there's a big drop-off. I think it matters. I think it's a little bit short on the Vikings here. So me and Hitman on the Vikings. Suma, you had an opinion here as well.
I will make it very quick. You two touched on a lot of things that I want to say. I just think that Minnesota might be a really, really good football team coming off the bye. No, Hutchinson is pretty big in this matchup because Minnesota has very, very good tackle tandem. So against that aggressive man coverage of the Lions, I think KOC will cook something up. Sam Darnold should be able to operate from a lot of clean pockets. JJ, I really like his matchup against man coverage. They will figure stuff out. And there on the other side, Jared Goff, I want to see him consistently beating that Brian Flores defense, dropping into all sorts of cover 2 out of different looks.
All right. Before we get into the next game here, football's in full swing. There's no better place to get in on the NFL action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can kick off the season with $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just place any $5 bet. You'll get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. You can use your bets on spreads, props, live bets, including the to pass market, which we use on our live watch-alongs a lot, over-unders, and so much more. I love betting on FanDuel. I think it's a very quality book, great product, lots of betting options, treats the customers fairly as well, decent limits on props. I think they just cater to every type of bettor. So I love supporting FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. Download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/forwardprogress. You must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus is issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chad in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, and call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Make sure you use those responsible gaming tools that are available to you as well, especially off a week last week where I know some people that got burned pretty hard. Those resources are available to you. Keeping it moving along here, we got the Bills and we got the Titans. Bills off a pretty incredible win on an interesting game on Monday Night Football, to say the least. The Titans, they continue to disappoint coming off the bye week. Early market support here for the Buffalo Bills. They've been bet out all the way to 9.5 at a market-making book, 8.5 minus 115 at FanDuel. Total in the game, you see some 41s out there. FanDuel's 41.5, juiced towards the under. And we're going to go to Judah here. Judah, you had an opinion on the side.
Yeah, I did like Buffalo a bit less now that it's steamed a bit, but I think the spread can both be a combination of fundamental value between teams and also real points in real games. And I don't see this as a spot where Tennessee's going to score much on offense. Most of the things we can say about Deshaun Watson, we should also be saying about Will Levis. And if anything, the only area of potential success is the deep passes, where he's gotten pretty unlucky via drops and stuff of that variety. But Buffalo getting healthier on defense and has for the last 4 or 5 years now under Sean McDermott schematically tried to eliminate explosive plays, and they've done a pretty good job with that. They're bottom 5 virtually every season in that category. I just don't see Tennessee as being able to put up points. And on the flip side, I think that Buffalo matchups matter a little bit less to a quarterback like Josh Allen, who can create so much on his own, extending plays and scrambling. I don't anticipate Amari Cooper being back, but they themselves are getting healthier. I think Khalil Shakir getting back is a pretty huge benefit for them. I think the Bills are just going to be able to put up points, and I think there's kind of a low variance spot in that I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to keep up on the other side.
All right. In a very similar type of game with one team trending up and the other one, who's just been down for the majority of the year, we got the Bengals going on the road to take on the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns trade away Amari Cooper yesterday. It's been a real slog for that offense for the entire season. Immediately on the trade news, you see the market steam towards the Cincinnati Bengals. We're out to 6.5 at FanDuel. A little bit of buyback on the Browns today at some books to 6. Total in the game, FanDuel 41.5, juice towards the over. Some other books at 42. And I wanted to throw to you here, Suma. You want to make a case for one of the teams.
Yes, Bengals -6, -6.5. This is an auto bet for me. I think that there might be a chance that there isn't a model out there or like any strategy that can capture how bad Deshaun Watson has been playing. And sure, Amari Cooper has had his drops, but he still matters to opposing defenses in terms of dictating their or structuring their coverage rotations. And this is so bad. Like last week, the Eagles closed, I think, -8. And the only reason this game was even close in the fourth quarter was because the Browns had a field goal block return touchdown, which was basically a, let's call it 8 to 10 point swing in the game. Second half, I saw some tweets that Deshaun Watson was 11 of 12. Great EPA per play in the second half. I watched every snap. It was 9 dump-offs around the line of scrimmage, 1 wide open crosser to Jerry Jeudy of broken coverage, and 1 slant over 70 yards or something. So they basically are running a Mickey Mouse offense right now so that Deshaun Watson does not eat too many sacks and does not do too many mistakes. And I don't know how they can get anything going offensively, basically against any type of defense right now. And on the other side, I think that the Bengals are also a small class above the Eagles right now, at least on offense. Last week, the Eagles closed -8. This is not on the road for the Browns, but I just don't see any life with this offense. And I think that we talked about it on this channel. The Browns defense is not great this year. So I think Bengals should be able to move the ball. And I just don't see where points should come from the Browns defense offense.
All right. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I think these teams are in different classes right now, but Suma likes Cincinnati in that game. Our next game is an interesting one because all four of us have an opinion on it in some capacity or another. It's the Eagles and the Giants. A little bit back and forth in the market. Early money all on the New York Giants in this game. Number dropped all the way down to 3. We've seen a little bit of buyback on the Philadelphia Eagles this morning, up to -3, -120 across the board. Total in the game, 43 or 43.5, depending on the book. FanDuel 43.5, juice towards the under, which is one of the better numbers in market right now as well. Let's go over to you here first, Hitman. You're looking at one of the sides in this game. Obviously, a lot of injury information to process in this one as well.
Yeah, I have a slight lean towards the Eagles. The Giants did not have Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence practice today. Brian Burns has said that he's going to play in this game, so probably ends up being out there. But Dexter Lawrence would specifically be a really big loss for a Giants defense that is heavily reliant on pressure with their front four. And the Eagles, even without their starting left tackle, this Eagles offensive line, they've started the season a little bit below their usual top tier of the league standard, but this is still an offensive line that I think is good enough to semi-counter the Giants front, especially if did happen to be a Dexter Lawrence injury. And if you do get protection against the Giants, this secondary is terrible. And when they do not get pressure, this defense is allowing a league-high completion rate. They're 30th in yards per attempt allowed. It's an obvious mismatch with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown against their corners. And on the other side of the ball, I think that the Giants' offensive line is less equipped to play without their starting left tackle and Andrew Thomas than the Eagles' O-line is playing without their starting left tackle. Obviously, getting Neighbors back is a huge boost, but it's still a Giants offense that year-to-date ranks bottom 5 in explosive play rate. Only the Raiders have a lower percentage of runs to gain 5 or more yards. They rank 28th in EPA running the ball. They've had 4 very easy defensive matchups this season against a banged-up Seattle defense, Washington, Dallas, and Cincinnati, and they averaged 17 points in those games, including Daniel Jones throwing for just 5 yards per attempt last week, scoring 7 points against a Bengals defense who hasn't stopped anyone all season. So for me, it's just a lean, but and I would need 3 on it. It does seem like the market is bouncing back and forth. Every time it gets to 3, goes back to 3.5, 3.5s go back to 3. But I would have a slight lean towards the Eagles at 3.
Hitman leans Eagles, Suma. You lean the opposite way.
Yes, lean towards the Giants. I would like to get a 3.5, honestly. I think that I'm not really convinced of the Eagles. I don't like their defense. I think they have a below average defense. I don't think there's anyone on the secondary, despite Quinn Mitchell playing kind of well right now, that can cover Malik Neighbors, and it sounds like he should be back this week. And what I really like about this matchup is the Giants defense, especially their defensive line against the Eagles offensive line without John Mailata. I think that the Eagles just don't have that elite offensive line anymore, and now you take away basically their best offensive lineman on the edge against Brian Burns. Dexter Lawrence is an absolute game wrecker. The Giants' defensive line is really producing incredible metrics right now. They were great without Thibodeau last week against the Bengals. I think that they will get Jalen Hurts consistently under pressure, and Jalen Hurts really does not play well under pressure this season. I don't know whether it's the scheme, whether it was the injuries, not having his security blankets, Dallas Goedert not playing. So I think that the Eagles will have a hard time moving the ball. So this might be rather a low-scoring affair, and I would like to catch the Giants at 3.5 here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the total in this game, and I like the under a little bit. Now, obviously, the Dexter Lawrence news, got to see how things play out because there's a lot of moving parts in this game. But you're down both left tackles in this game for both teams. The Giants in pass protection this year were already near the bottom in a bunch of categories, pressure percentage. Coming off last year as well, when the Giants had offensive line injuries, they really struggled. But most importantly, when you're betting a total, is that even with Malik Neighbors back, the Giants can't really stretch the field. Everything is underneath. Daniel Jones doesn't throw a great deep ball. So yes, Philadelphia might be susceptible to some explosives, but there's teams that just can't take advantage of it. On the other side, I think the Philly offense is overrated right now. Even at full health, you look at, they opened the season with Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. Those defenses, all four of them, ranked 22nd or worse in success rate this season. They finally got an above the average defense last weekend in Cleveland. They couldn't really move the ball consistently. I just think that explosives will be hard to come by in this game, minus both left tackles. And it's two offenses that I kind of think are a little bit overrated right now. So really lean towards the under in this game. Judah, I know you had some thoughts on both side and total here.
Yeah, I think the Giants question marks in the injury front do matter, and I'm not as bullish on the Giants take now, but I would just echo your thoughts on the under, and especially the Eagles are going to be with that left tackle Jordan Mailata, replaced by Fred Johnson. Fred Johnson allowed 11 pressures to the Bucs in his one spot start this year, and Jalen Hurts, is a quarterback who is extremely affected by pressure. If you look at these pressure disruptions, he is negative 1.2 EPA per play. That's like negative 0.2 worse than the next closest guy. He is a complete disaster when he doesn't have his protection. The Giants lead the league in these pressure disruptions. Dexter Lawrence is a huge reason why, especially if he's going. I think this really leans towards the under for exactly as you said, both offensive lines really struggling health-wise, going up against pretty good pass rushes. I see this as a game with a lot of sacks, stalled drives, and pretty few explosives.
All right, before we get into our next game here, I want to urge everyone, if you're enjoying the content here on Forward Progress, smash the like button down below. It goes a long way and tells YouTube that you're enjoying it and to serve it out to other people. So take 2 seconds, hit that thumbs up if you can. If this is your first time in here or you're not subscribed here to Forward Progress, consider subscribing below as well, as it does help us put out this content and grow our channel going forwards. I'll start it off with the next game. It's the Packers and the Texans. I talked about this one with Clive a little bit on Sunday night when the line first opened. We're seeing most books at -2.5 in the -120 range right now, favored towards Green Bay. We do have some threes out there, though, including in the -115 range. Total in the game, 47.5/48. I'm not quite there on the Packers at this number just yet. I think we covered both of these games on the stream last week, and I had pro-Packers sentiment and a little bit anti-Texans, and the market is completely flipped on these teams. In my opinion, Green Bay had a stellar matchup at home against the Arizona Cardinals last week, a team that can't generate much pressure. They lost Marvin Harrison Jr. early on in that game as well, just like a completely broken, dysfunctional team. Obviously, Houston's without Nico Collins. That's a major injury for them going forwards. We may have overreacted to Tank Dell being injured and not serviceable because he was great against New England last week. But I just don't see the separation between these two teams to warrant the number. If you can get 3 -115 out there, you need Green Bay to win by margin or the Texans to lose by margin. And I really think the likelihood of this being a close game is super high. One other thing to add, Joe Mixon makes a difference for Houston. It sounds incredibly dumb to say that, considering my belief that he was completely washed up going into this year. But it's night and day running the ball with Mixon in the backfield relative to Cam Akers. And it's extremely important for the Texans because they run so much on early downs, especially second and long. So to me, that makes a big difference here. Cannot get to the number. I think Houston's a valuable bet in this one this week. Suma, you also had some thoughts here on the side, Texans and Packers.
Yes, my general lean is also towards the Texans right now. At the current price, I would not bet it. I would want to wait on the 3 because there's also some glaring injury question marks on the Texans side, which I don't really like. Aside from Nico Collins, the Nico Autry is off suspension this week, but Jimmy Ward will be out, Kamari Lassiter will be out, both starting linebackers might be out. And at some point, yes, the Texans defense has been incredible. The pass rush is great, but if you take away both starting linebackers who've played really, really well so far against a Matt LaFleur offense, and a offensive line that always plays a little bit better than what their personnel on the depth chart looks like, I get very hesitant with grabbing the Texans now. So I'm willing to wait. If the injury situation is bad, we might see Green Bay catching more money, I guess. So just a wait and see mode from me right now. But in general, I can also not get to that number. But the injury situation is keeping me up a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually a great point there. And an important aspect of betting as well as market timing as well. With the injury report for Houston, certainly could be waiting to get involved on that one. Switching gears, we're going to cover as many games as possible. This one is an ugly one, but we can bet it. It's on the board. The Raiders seem to be a complete lost cause at this moment in time. Got steamrolled at home to the Steelers last week. They go out on the road. I'm doing road in quotation marks right here, even though I'm not up on screen, because there will be a lot of Raiders fans in attendance for this game in Los Angeles. All Rams money early on. There was some possibility that Cooper Kupp would go in this game, but seems unlikely at this point. Regardless, there seems to be a huge anti-Raiders sentiment in market right now with this number all the way out to 7. And Hitman, you're thinking that this number might have moved a little bit too far here.
Yeah, I have some doubts that Cooper Kupp is going to play. The latest NFL Network reports are saying that it's possible, was the terminology that they use. Not that NFL Network reports have much credibility these days, because they've been pretty wrong the past year and a half. But regardless, am I really racing to lay 7 on a Rams team that, yes, they have a very difficult strength of schedule so far this year, but it's a team that still has trailed for 75% of their offensive snaps this year, which is second worst in the league. Their defense is bottom 3 in EPA success rate, literally every single major metric. I think that it's worth monitoring Jacoby Myers. I believe he practiced in full today, just because Vegas is so laughably thin at wide receiver without him. But I just think that it's too many points for the Rams to be laying. And I have been burnt by betting on some of these bottom 5, 6 teams this year, that's for sure. But I think it's too many points. But I'm also interested in the prop market for this game. If Cooper Kupp does play, who is the odd man out in this 11 personnel for the Rams? People might say it's going to be Jordan Whittington is going to be the odd man out because he's been playing a lot of slot receiver, but he's been arguably their most effective receiver in the past few weeks. So, like, is Tutu Atwell the guy out, the guy that they need to threaten defenses vertically, or is Demarcus Robinson going to be the guy, the odd man out? A lot of people say no, because Robinson was the third receiver when Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were healthy. So I'm interested. It's something just worth monitoring on what are the Rams going to do with their 11 personnel this week in the prop market, because somebody's getting left out between the 3 guys that I just mentioned. And I honestly have no idea which one of the 3 it's going to be. But if you can figure it out, it might be profitable.
Interesting prop look there from Hitman. A few comments to get to. Hitman can't resist betting on the worst teams possible. It is true, but he's having the best year out of all of us. Looks like Hitman creating his own walking bets in the office. Everyone's noticed that walking treadmill you got going on. Is what's happening there, Hitman?
Yeah, so I got it's not an expensive. It's a cheap treadmill. I got the regular one downstairs, but I need one for the office when I'm just staring at spank odds for 15 hours and staring at the televisions. You know, at least I can do something productive. So yeah, we now have walking bets might be coming to a stream near you.
How much of an adjustment do you make for Packers all white unis? I'm not going to lie to you. I get scared to death whenever I bet against a team that's wearing like throwback uniforms or like some type of classic. I think we all do, honestly. Did not incorporate that into the handicap. Might be back to the drawing board. One last question for all you guys here, because this is talked about a lot, especially in regards to the Raiders this week, like a team that's quit. Do you buy that at all? Like, Hitman, you lean Raiders, so obviously you're willing to put your money down here.
Well, I haven't bet it yet, but I mean, it's week 7. Like, are we really going to say that like this team has quit? And like, this is the same team that fought so hard to get Antonio Pierce hired. Like Max Crosby, the team leaders were going to Mark Davis, demanding that this guy who we all knew was a buffoon to get hired. So like, have we gotten to the point where they've given up on him after 6 weeks? Like, I'm not about the quit angle yet. Like, if you want to say it about Cleveland and like maybe they rebel against Stefanski for continuing to put Watson out there. If you want to say it about Jacksonville, who Andre Sisco said last week, like some of our guys quit.
Yeah,
you could say it about those teams, but I'm not buying it with the Raiders.
Yeah, I tend to be in the same boat as you, where I think a lot of times we overreact to this stuff. And like the market moved so heavily on the Devontae Adams trade, he wasn't going to play anyways. Like he was not going to play another game for the Raiders. Anyways, I'm going to have to really just erase this game and not bet the Raiders. But I've slowly been talking myself into it as the week has gone on. We'll keep it moving here. Miami, Indianapolis. Miami, another team that's had some quote unquote coaching issues. People have been on McDaniel quite a bit this year. Indy making the move to Richardson at starter. And market has just been all one way. Miami action openers were 4.5. We're now down to Indy -3, -120 at FanDuel, but we have some flat threes out there in the market as well. Total's been bouncing up and down. We're now off of 44. It's at 43.5 here. Suma, you like one of the sides in this game. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so full disclaimer, Miami got bad during our show, so my lean is becoming smaller and smaller. Still a tiny lean towards the Dolphins at a decent 3 here. I'm pretty down on Anthony Richardson. I think that the difference between Flacco and Richardson is kind of monumental when you watch how this Colts defense plays. Yes, Flacco did not have a great game against the Titans, but the Titans also have a somewhat decent defense with 2 stud defensive tackles up front. And I mean, Flacco is really throwing the ball very well. Those receivers look better, and with Richardson is basically incomplete, maybe a big bomb, incomplete. It's so boom or bust. There's zero floor with this offense. It's also concerning to me that they don't incorporate him as a runner to this offense, because I think that if you don't use Richardson as a runner on like 5, 6, 7 designed runs per game, what is the point of trying to build an offense around someone who really struggles to complete forward passes? So Richardson is a pretty big downgrade in my book compared to Joe Flacco, and I think at a decent 3, there is certainly value on Miami. I think Miami will have some success on the ground coming out of the bye week, a little bit healthier, and I'm not sure that Anthony Richardson's really the much better quarterback in this one.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a little bit to that right there. So I've avoided Tennessee on the bye week last week purely because it's steamed. I think it was actually Hitman's release that steamed the entire market. Thank you, Hitman, for not getting me a bet on Tennessee last week. But it was the old adage of like, or a lot of people thought Tennessee's going to fix their offense in the bye week. They got a good matchup against the Colts defense. Then we just learned that the offense is shit. They're not fixing the offense. I have that same vibe with the Dolphins this week, which scares me a little bit, but I trust the offensive game planning of McDaniel so much more than I do Callahan. And I actually like all the things I'm hearing about Miami in the off week. I do think that they can move the ball on the Colts defense. I'm with Suma here. I may regret it because we haven't seen it all that well so far this season, but I do like the Dolphins a little bit in this game, although the number, like Suma said, has gotten away a little bit as well. Keeping it moving, we got the Carolina Panthers on the road at the Washington Commanders. Carolina took some early money in this game. Washington's been bet out since. We're sitting at 8.5 at FanDuel right now. There's some 8s across the market as well. Total in the game, 51.5 in this one. We'll start with you, Judah. You're looking at the side in this game. Are you willing to back the Panthers, or do you think they're going to get rolled here?
No, I think this is a Washington spot. I like this better when it was hanging out at 7.5. But again, I think this is a relatively low variance spot for the Washington offense that is obviously very good. They're also going up against the Panthers defense, which is way worse, I think, than any other defense in the NFL. There's a pretty big gap between them and everyone else. Teams are consistently scoring 35 points a game. I don't think that's a fluke. I think that is very likely for Washington, or at least as likely as it could be for any two NFL teams. Obviously, there's a bunch of randomness involved in any given game. And I don't see the Carolina offense, especially given the state of their offensive line, as a given to be able to kind of take advantage of where Washington is weakest, especially in a negative game script. I'm just going to be wanting to take Washington, given the low variance, I think, in their ability to put up a lot of points against Carolina.
Suma, you're looking at the total in this one.
Yes, give me the over. We could talk all day about how great this Washington offense is, but their defense is also pretty bad. They lost John Allen. He was not good this year, but it's still a loss on the interior defensive line. They lost John Baptiste going to IR. Dorrance Armstrong, their best pass rusher, likely out. Panthers have a decent offensive line. I think the Panthers can also put up some points. Give me the over.
All right. Hard to argue against that one. We got Sunday Night Football, Jets and Steelers. Unfortunately, Hitman's uncle, Steve Fezzik, went to bet the look ahead in this game, and it's gone completely against him at this point. New York Jets now widely favored across the board. FanDuel minus 1.5, minus 115. Total in the game, 38.5. Obviously, Devontae Adams acquired. Looks like he is going to play in this game as well. Hitman, I'll go to you here first. Are you in agreement with Uncle Fez? Do you think that the Steelers are the right side?
Well, if I did say the Jets, I'm sure there would be a release coming soon that says the Jets, and his mind would get switched. But no, I actually do lean towards Pittsburgh in this game. The Jets got a bump in market off the Adams trade. I just have some, obviously he's going to play, but I have some little bit of hesitation on how effective he does end up being game one. I just have a tough time getting to a power rating where Pittsburgh is 3-ish points worse than the Jets. I mean, Pittsburgh just 2 weeks ago was closing a juiced 2.5 at home against Dallas. They really haven't been upgraded or downgraded, at least in my opinion, much since that point. Like, are we saying that the Jets are this significantly superior in market ratings to what Dallas was 2 weeks ago? And props wise in this game, I think that if Wilson starts, that we're still going to see Justin Fields, and it's going to lead to some opportunities in props. I'm not even sure what yet, like maybe some anytime touchdown markets, over under touchdown markets, some pass catchers markets, but I do think that Fields is still going to have a role even if Wilson starts in this game.
Interesting. I didn't think of that at all. I'd be curious to see if they go with some different quarterback looks.
Especially in the red zone, I could say.
Yeah, I can totally see that. They have to get into the red zone is the problem first with Russell Wilson if they're going to use Fields. I say that in jest. Suma, you're the resident Jets fan. I don't know if you were asleep for Monday Night Football. I hope you were, because you probably would have threw up in real time watching that game. But what are your thoughts this week, Jets Steelers?
I slept through it, watched it in the morning. Going back to the Jets this week, I think hashtag Rusty Russell might not be it this week. He has not played in a long time. He's not as mobile as Justin Fields. Justin Fields was actually solid, I think. He had 20 scrambles for 0.57 EPA per play this season. This is the same efficiency level as Jaden Daniels. He got 11.4 expected points from scrambles. The whole offense was at 3.5 EPA. So those scrambles really had a huge impact on that offense, especially when you consider that they are down 3 starters of their offensive line. Zach Frazier was a really, really good rookie so far. He will not play. James Daniels was their best offensive lineman. He will be out. So I think that I'm just having a hard time seeing a Steelers offense with Russell Wilson, with a banged up offensive line, with no great pass protection, moving the ball consistently on this Jets defense, even if they are out DJ Reed and Michael Carter. And on the other side, I'm also not as sold on the Steelers. Their 4 wins was against Atlanta without scoring a touchdown when Kirk Cousins did not take a snap under center, at Denver where they only needed 13 points, against the Chargers when they lost all Slater, Bosa, and Herbert played on a high ankle sprain, and against the Raiders with AOC and without their wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. The defense played pretty much no single above average offense outside of maybe Indy with Joe Flacco, and they moved the ball up and down the field against them. Alex Highsmith will be back. Nick Herbig is still out. Their second edge rusher was Jeremiah Moon. Their slot cornerback, Beanie Bishop, undrafted free agent, has not been tested really so far. I think Devontae Adams and Gerald Wilson will be a tough matchup for him. And I think that the Jets just should have the better offensive matchup in this one. And they are, with their backs against the wall, a huge spot for them. If they are 2-5, it's not going to go well in New York media.
Judah, you can be the tiebreaker here. Jets or Steelers?
Yeah, like the Jets here. I think on both sides, as Suma mentioned, I think that the Steelers' defense being good is a function of the opponents that they faced. Mostly, I think this is a Jets offense, which is probably, especially if Devontae Adams is in, probably the best unit they've faced. And I agree. I think Russell Wilson is a pretty big drop off, and especially when you look at how Justin Fields has handled pressure, his pressure to sack rate has improved pretty drastically this year. Now, I don't know if that's sustainable, but Russell Wilson over the last bunch of years has been far worse than Russell Wilson's current production. And I think there's little reason to think that he will just improve as Justin Fields has. Fields has kind of changed his game a little bit. He's scrambling far less often. I think that's kind of a trade-off that he's made that is conscious. I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be able to maintain that rate. And against the Jets defense that is generating pressure at a top 5 clip, I think that really matters in this matchup.
All right, switching gears here, Super Bowl rematch should be a great game. And the line indicates that, as the San Francisco 49ers are very small home favorites, -1.5, -105 at FanDuel. Total in the game is pretty much 47 across the board, but FanDuel hanging 47.5. So if you like the under, you're going to want to bet it at FanDuel. We're going to start with you, and you're going to only opinion on this game, Suma. It's the Chiefs 49ers. Who you're liking here and why?
Since we are running out of time, I will make this very short. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog, and that's the handicap.
You know what? It sounds so ridiculous to just say something like that, but when you look at Mahomes in these like spreads that are under 3, one way or another, not even underdogs, where you just need him to win a game, he performs so much higher than market expectation in those games. Like, Judah, you can jump in here. I see you want to say something. No, just thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
right.
You just bet on Mahomes.
Yep. All right. I agree. I listen. I don't want the 49ers in this game. I'll tell you that. 2 Monday Night Football games. Let's start with the Ravens and the Bucs. Early Bucs money. We've kind of plateaued here at Baltimore -3.5, -115 in the market. Again, if you're looking to bet Bucs, I say it, I'm looking left to right across the board, 3.5 -105 at FanDuel, best number in market. Total in this game has been bet up a little bit. We're sitting at 49.5 across the board. Judah, we'll go to you here first. I think you were looking at the total in this game.
Yeah, total and the Ravens. I think more so the Ravens now that the total's moved a bit. I feel like I've developed this reputation as being a Ravens seller. Like, breaking the Ravens offense is really, really good. I think that's pretty well priced into the market. But I think this is a team that's going to be able to score at will. We obviously saw that the Tampa Bay defense struggle immensely against Atlanta. They've struggled really all year against any competent offense. And I guess on the flip side, Baker Mayfield has struggled in a lot of these obvious passing situations. This has been historically true. It's true again this year. The Ravens' run defense, I think, is going to force the Bucs into a lot of these passing situations, creating a bunch of sacks and turnovers, where we can see maybe a little bit of the left tail on Baker Mayfield, and the Ravens are going to be able to score. I don't think there's anything Tampa Bay is going to be able to do to stop them.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one as well. I like the over in this game. And it's just to do with, I think people are really overrating Tampa Bay's ability to stop the Ravens running game. I think even if they're successful in that manner, which I'm not convinced that they will be, I still think Baltimore can throw on them. This is also a very good offense at scoring touchdowns in the red zone, which is kind of gone unnoticed. First in red zone touchdown percentage at 75%. And if Tampa gets into a trailing game state, they air it out. Baker Mayfield will take chances. Those will turn into turnovers or they'll turn into big plays. In neutral game states, his air yards per attempt is very low, but I expect him to be trailing for a lot of this game. I like the over in this one. I agree with you on that one, Judah. In the other game, we just got some market movement while we've been on air, or at least a little bit of it, as Arizona took a small amount of money. We're looking at the Chargers still favored on the road, -2.5 in most spots. Market making book down to 2 in one spot as well. Total in the game is 43.5. We got some differing opinions on this one. Suma, I'll start with you here. You like the road team.
Yes, I like the Chargers. I think they will be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. The Chargers' interior offensive line has been very bad at pass protecting. Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, and Trey Pipkins have pass blocking grades of sub 50. Slater and Alt are obviously very good, but Arizona has an awful defense. They don't have anyone along the interior. Their interior guys are LJ Collier, Roy Lopez, and Dante Stills. They don't defend the run very well, 44% rushing success rate. I think that the Chargers can run the ball on them, and I also think that Herbert should be able to deal with more clean pockets in this one. On the other side, I think that outside of Marvin Harrison potentially not playing, I think that Arizona does not have a plan B when they cannot run the ball. And the Chargers defense has been incredible. They are only allowing a 33% success rate against the run. So I think they will pretty much shut Arizona down on the ground and then force Kyler Murray to air it out on longer passing downs and distances. And overall, I just like the matchup for the Chargers here.
Judah, you like the opposite side. You like the matchup for Arizona.
Yeah. I think the Chargers have stopped the run because they haven't played any really competent run games. They like Carolina has a competent run game. They allowed 6.5 yards per carry. They basically have gotten I think one of the easiest slate of opponents. I think this defense is not as good as their production indicates. The Marvin Harrison injury does matter a bunch. I think we have a pretty good sense of who Arizona is. Pretty bad defense and an offense that can score. Given 3 points at home, I think that's a little bit too much against the Chargers offense, which is going to run the ball a lot and not really express their skill strength there.
All right. That was, we got through with a lot of opinions today, more so than last week, which was good. Hopefully people found value in that. If you did, smash the like button down below. We'll do futures. We'll do them rapid fire style so we can try to keep this as close to an hour as possible. Hitman, you've been on fire. You're the guy. Give us your first future here.
It's sad that 3-2 is considered on fire, but I'm going to say Jacksonville under 6.5 wins. Believe it's at -168 now. I'm willing, even with that juice, I'm willing to make a bet against Jacksonville finishing the season 6-5, especially because after this New England game, they have such a difficult strength of schedule coming up for their next 5 games. That, like, if this does go south for Jacksonville, like, there's going to be changes as far as personnel. Like, they might be trading guys like Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, so I might be lowering their power rating even more than what it is now. So, yeah, bet against Jacksonville going 6-5.
Got it. I'm going to pull a page out of Judah's book from the Monday show this week and kind of going to fade TJ Watt in the Defensive Player of the Year market. Dexter Lawrence said he's playing this week. That quote came out in the last 10 minutes or so. I'm targeting him. He's having like an Aaron Donald light type of season. I'm not going to compare him to Aaron Donald, but TJ Watt's surface stats are not great right now. A lot of that's been because he's been double teamed. They didn't have Alex Highsmith on the other side, but I think Lawrence is going to get a lot of credit for this Giants defense, which a lot of people thought was going to be real bad and has turned it around over the course of this year. So 12-1, Dexter Lawrence is going to be my look. Judah, it's on you.
You got the Cowboys under 8.5. This is, outside of CeeDee Lamb, they have no secondary options. Teams are leaving Jalen Tolbert on an island. He's seen single coverage on like 70% of his snaps. He still can't separate. They really have no plan B. The defense is atrocious right now. Obviously, Micah Parsons is out. The market's moved a little bit here. It's plus 100 this morning, but there's really nothing I think redeeming about the Cowboys right now. They've got a gauntlet of a schedule coming up. I see this as a pretty good futures bet.
Yeah, pains me, but I would agree with you as well. Suba, finish it off here in futures.
Yeah, going with the Bucks to win the division at plus 175. They got the same amount of wins than the Falcons, but the Falcons have the easier schedule going forward. I think that is pretty much priced into the market. That's the big difference. But I think it's still hard to make such a huge difference between the two teams because I'm generally a little bit higher on the Bucks offense than market, I guess. I think that their offense is really robust. I like what they're doing there. I'm high on Baker this season. I also think that their defense was riddled with injuries. Antoine Winfield has played 2 games. Vita Vea was out. Kalijah Kancey was out several games. Their cornerbacks are in and out. I think once they get a little bit more lucky on the injury front, I think that their defense will also be better going forward. And I also still trust Todd Bowles in that defense more than what the Falcons are currently having. So going with the Bucks in the division.
All right, time for best bets. For the first time in the history of this program on Forward Progress, Hitman is riding a 2-game winning streak. Looking to make it 3 in a row. He gets the honors. Hitman, who's the best bet this week and why?
Seattle Seahawks +3. I think that this line should be similar to what the Falcons were in the past 3 weeks, where they were 2 to 2.5 point home favorites against Tampa Bay and New Orleans. I have Seattle rated very closely to what those teams were rated at the time, and very closely, to be honest, with Atlanta right now. You could argue that Atlanta's 2 losses this year against Pittsburgh and Kansas City were well-deserved. I could argue that 3 of their wins against Philly, Tampa, and New Orleans were very fortunate. I still believe in Mike Macdonald as a defensive play caller and his ability to turn this defense around. They looked really good in the start of the season, albeit it was against terrible competition, but it was also before the injuries took a massive toll. Seattle does have extra rest for this game to hopefully get some guys like Tariq Woolen back. Byron Murphy is supposedly going to be back for this game as well. And Seattle's offense is loaded with weapons. The only concern I ever have about Seattle's offensive productivity is when they face elite pass rushes that can take advantage of their offensive line. But Atlanta ranks 28th in pressure rate. They're dead last in sack rate against Andy Dalton last week, who had injuries to 2 of his best offensive linemen. He was kept pretty much clean the entire game. He moved the ball pretty successfully against Atlanta's defense, had a chance to cut that to a 2 or 0 point game inside 10 minutes, if not for the interception at the Falcons' 20-yard line. And I think that Seattle's offense just has a clear matchup advantage against this Falcons defense. And I made the game closer to what you made it, Rob and Suma. I was closer to 2 on this game. So give me Seattle +3.
All right, I'm going to go next year. You can just draw the square on my forehead. I don't care. I'm taking Commanders and Panthers over 51.5. It always starts with the number. I think that this is way too low for what the Carolina Panthers defense is right now. They have nobody left in the front 7. Like, it's completely disastrous for them going into this week. They drop into cover 3 as a defense. Jaden Daniels, 57% success rate against cover 3 this year. That's the second highest number in the entire league. They're just going to move the ball at will. One problem with Carolina as well, they're dead last in pressure rate. They blitz at a top 10 rate in the entire league. It's just a disaster for them. I honestly think the floor for Washington's team total here is in the low 30s. And I think I can rely on Carolina's offense in a trailing game state to move the ball. They moved it on Atlanta last week, even with offensive line injuries. You have the Jonathan Allen injury for Washington, which hurts their front 7 as well. Dalton can make some plays. I think this number is the market loves to bet under on these high totals. I'm not buying it for this one. Obviously like to get a 51 if you can, but 51.5 to the over for me. Judah, on you here.
Yeah, like Cincinnati, minus 9.5 here against Cleveland. Again, talking about points as real points in real games. Cleveland's implied for 17.5 points right now. It was a little higher earlier this week. They have not really gotten there at all this season, and I think it's kind of building in a little bit of prior on how bad the Bengals defense is. But I think the Browns offense is so bad right now that the matchups are effectively irrelevant. They're causing so much of their own disruption that is matchup agnostic. Deshaun Watson just holding the ball forever, the offensive line being a disaster. Trading Amari Cooper certainly does not help. He was the only one who was really able to generate any separation. And on the flip side, Cincinnati has obviously over the years done a great job via the explosive game. Teams are attacking Cleveland via deep passes. They have faced the highest rate of 20-yard passes, and they themselves, outside of Myles Garrett, have basically nothing. They're down. Grant Delpit now is going to be out. He's been one of their better safeties. I just don't see how Cleveland's going to be able to keep pace, and the Bengals match up relatively well against a defense that I think is still a little bit overrated in market terms.
All right, Suma, you have to get off the schneid with a pick this week. You're in Hitman 2023 territory. Nobody wants to be in that territory. This is the week. Who's it going to be and why?
Yeah, get your fates ready. You guys touched on it, going with the over in the Ravens Bucks game. Like I said, I'm higher on the Bucks offense. I think they can score on this Ravens pass defense. Rashad White not being healthy might actually help this team going forward. But I think that Baker will move the ball against the secondary and put up points. And then on the other side, yes, the Bucks defense might get healthier and might be better going forward, but I don't see them doing anything in this matchup against a rolling Ravens offense. I think Ravens will do a lot of damage on play action in this one. And I think 49.5 is still a tad too short, even if it got bet up since yesterday.
All right. That's going to do it for week 7, Best Bets edition here on Forward Progress. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Forward Progress on YouTube. You can also catch a show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts after the fact. We give our betting insights every single week. If you're watching after the fact, drop your thoughts and your picks in the comments below. And if you have any questions specifically for me, I will go into the comments later this week. I'll respond to every single one individually. So let's keep the conversation going. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for Young Judah, for Suma, for Hitman, best of luck this week. As always, bet responsibly, and we'll see you next time here on Forward Progress.